Namaste. So today's reflection, basically on the series of foundations in integral yoga, is on the four eights. We have taken up aspiration, rejection, surrender. Now, very often people want to know what should we do in yoga. But before we come to do, we must understand that there are aids. The aids means what helps us to do the yoga and to realize the goal. What is indispensable in the process. So this journey is not just that I read from book and I do it. At least this yoga cannot be done. I don't know whether any yoga can be done like that. So there are aids to yoga. There are powers, forces which help us to realize the goal of yoga. Then there are methods. Methods are next to that. We can use this method, that method, meditation, bhakti, etc. Then there are processes like surrender, concentration. They are processes. Then there are tools. Tools are very external things. So aids are central to yoga, but even before we touch upon aids, it's important to understand that in yoga there is something called as adhikar bhed. This is something which we have forgotten in modern generation because knowledge or rather information is accessible to anyone and everyone. But Sri Aurobindo repeatedly cautions about it. Even in evening talks he speaks about it. Not all are ready for the yoga. It's like not all are ready for doing anything and everything. So we have to see for ourselves whether we are really ready for the path of yoga or not. And the indication for that is a call. Now, call doesn't mean that anybody will write, but from Pondicherry that you are called for yoga, no telegram, nothing. But call is something which is within. One feels drawn towards the divine. One feels drawn towards the goal. It can come either ways. It could be the divine persona of Mother and Sri Aurobindo towards which one is drawn, who are the master of this yoga, and feels that our life is worth dedicating for this. And this feeling may come in different ways, that this is what is worth doing. This is what is worth living for. Now, call is not that if I do this yoga, I will get this. That is not call. I want power, I want knowledge, I want to be a great yogi. That's not a call, that's a ambition. The difference between ambition and call is for yoga. Yoga means union with the divine. It doesn't matter whatever time it takes, however much the hardship, whatever the difficulties and challenges of the path, this is what I want to do. And not for any selfish ends. Best is if the call is directly for the sake of the divine. Because one loves the divine, that's all. One wants to unite with the divine simply because one loves, nothing else. That's the best case scenario. The next is, goal. One is drawn to the idea of terrestrial transformation. Here is a sense, a meaning, a purpose of life. Or one may have a goal of perfection, that I want human life to enter into a state which is divine. This is not what life should be. So in whatever way, there are different ways of entry into the call, but before the call comes, one can do certain things. One is, very often there is a period of preparation. And during this period of preparation, without our realizing, there are two aspects of call. One is we become aware. Second is when the divine is called, there is a gap between the two. It's like the phone connection. We dial a number, the other person may or may not pick up, may or may not hear, may have even blocked our number. So all these things are possible. So the divine call, when it comes, spontaneously, automatically, certain things begin to happen. We are drawn to a book suddenly on a channel, or we come to Pondicherry, we suddenly enter into a center and we feel moved. Now this is happening. We come in contact with someone who is walking the path. So these are signs that actually the call has started, but it has not yet hit our core. That's what Sri Aurobindo says, that the call may come through a long process. Or if we are already ready, suddenly one moment, one look at Mother and Sri Aurobindo and it's over. One visit to the ashram and it's finished. One book and one knows this is it. Maybe one word, one sentence. I remember reading this phrase, all life is yoga, half a phrase. For me, it was like, oh, this is it I am looking for. So it can come in different ways to different people. But there is a period of preparation, then there is a call. And if somebody doesn't have a call, it's not good to disturb the person. Mother says repeatedly, it is like going to Mount Everest and after all that journey saying, hi, it is so wonderful, chaloge saath mein. he will say, "Oh, wonderful, you are saying Mount Everest is very nice. Yeah, wonderful, what a vision, what a sight." And if by mistake he starts, just imagine what will happen. So the call must come naturally. In this yoga, there is no evangelism. It is not like converting anybody. Even in your own family, nobody else may be following the path. Perfectly fine. If they are destined, they will find ways and means and they will get the call. So this is the first aspect. Sri Aurobindo would say most important is call. Call is an indication that you have the adhikar for the yoga. But then the next step is one should know what the path is about. Call is fine, but there are people who say, now I have the call, I feel like doing this yoga. Some people come in strange ways, I like Pondicherry. But the important thing is one must know what the path is about, where is it leading, what are the problems, issues, dangers, helps, difficulties, challenges, opportunities, possibilities. All this one must know about the path, and that aspect is called Shastra. Shastra is about understanding the path in a broad way. Nobody can explain every detail of the path because life is full of the unknown, the unexpected. You will not find, for example, a letter of Sri Aurobindo saying, if you have COVID-19, what you should do. But there will be letters saying that stay free from fear. Even there are letters in influenza, Sri Aurobindo says, stay quiet and free from fear. But if you are looking for COVID-19, Google searching, you won't find because life is full of unexpected. Nobody will say if you hit a stone and fall on the path, exactly what Bernal you should apply, no. But when you fall, get up again, walk. That's your destiny. So this is how there are broad outlines. Shastra is never about every small detail of life. And that's where there is another aspect of Shastra which is called the inner guidance, the inner Shastra. So outer Shastra is one aspect. At some point, outer Shastra changes into the inner Shastra, and that comes by experience as one grows into the journey. And that's why perhaps contact with somebody helps, because we'll read it, because somebody has walked, knows about the ups and downs and all these things, aspects of the journey. But these are the limitations. A point comes when we have to go beyond the Shastra. And the only way to do is by turning Shastra into a living experience. Shastra is not meant for debate, discussions, doubts. It is not meant for analysis by the human mind and trying to compare, contrast. That is not how Shastra is to be received. Shastra comes after the call. It is understood that I want to walk the path, and the one who has given the Shastra knows his way, knows what he is writing, and I have to receive it and walk the path. Because the one beyond the Shastra is the one who has given the Shastra. So the one who gives the Shastra is always greater than the Shastra. It's a logical thing, isn't it? So an author of a book will know many tricks which is not there in the book. See, that's how the story goes, that Drona taught everything to Arjuna, but something he had kept for his son, Ashwatthama, which he had not taught him. Some tricks up your sleeve. So greater than the Shastra is the Guru, the master of the integral yoga. Now again, just as Shastra has an outer aspect, the books, we have the inner aspect of Shastra, which is the inner guidance unfolding through countless circumstances of life. Similarly, we have the Guru, and the Guru is the representative of the divine. So if it's very good to lean on the Guru outside, but it's also important to discover the same master within us. When we discover him within us, then we discover he is none else but Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Guruve Namah. The Guru has to be seen as the supreme, Parabrahma. Some people draw a distinction between Guru, Master, Avatar, Parabrahma. This is the play of the mind. When we accept a Guru, Sri Aurobindo says, even if he is an inferior Guru, if you accept him as a Guru and take it that he is none else but the Supreme will help you. Even the Guru may be going down the ditch, but you will go further because you have accepted, you have formed that relation. And this is Sri Aurobindo reveals to us. In this yoga, the only Guru is Mother. And Sri Aurobindo, or only the Mother, because Sri Aurobindo said so. But she is not just a Guru. She is the Divine Mother. She is much more than a Guru, because what is the difference? Guru guides, Guru teaches, and teaches you to walk. Time to time, he will hold your hand if you are falling, maybe raise you. But Divine Mother, you tell Mother, I'm not able to. Can you carry me? She's the Divine Mother. Relation is different. She'll come and carry us. Still, we have to go through certain aspect. It's like Sri Krishna carrying Arjuna on the battlefield. We'll see some frightening scenes around us. But then when we see frightening scenes around us, see the difference. To a guru, you will write, Guru, I am in danger. Please help me. Guru will send you an advice. Do more meditation. But with Divine Mother, you'll just look, Ma, and she will say, yes, I'm there, I'm holding you. There's a big difference. So, in this yoga, the relation, Sri Aurobindo, because he knew the enormous difficulty of the yoga, he said that it's only when the Divine Mother came and consented to take charge of the yoga that he opened it for public. Because he knew, those who have the call, he knew otherwise human beings cannot do it. It's a most difficult yoga. Nothing outwardly. Outwardly, if you see, there is no difficulty like, we don't have to fast for many hours. We don't have to, forego sleep. Nothing. When we come to ashram, we are not asked to forego anything outward. But only one thing we have to forego. What is it? Very small 3-letter word. What you have to forego, sir? 3-letter money will not come in that. Comfort will not come in that. Luxury will not come. So, okay, tell me, sir, what is ego? Ego. What is ego? We don't even know what is ego. So we are asked to forego what we don't even know because we are seeing ego in everybody except ourselves. So that is the thing, we have to surrender to the divine. Ego is the whole entire apparatus of a way of being, a way of understanding, a way of living. That whole machinery that drives us by the sense of I and its self-importance is the ego. This is the operating hub. That we have to surrender, meaning thereby, right now ego is operated by all the lower forces of nature. Now we have to say, please take hold of this device. So he'll say, sure. So some time will elapse. He'll ask, little bit, divine will touch us and everything will begin to shake. Then he'll ask, you still want to surrender? Yes, sir, please take it. Again he'll touch. Again the ego's empire starts crumbling. Then eventually a time comes and divine says, itna bol raha hai, chalo le lete hain. You are so much surrendering, I'll now take it. Then life begins to change. It's a different groove in which we enter. So that also Sri Aurobindo explains. So we have the utsaha of the disciple, which involves surrender, aspiration. We have the master. And then when life begins to change, now the fourth instrument is time. Because now there are millions of years of background. Yoga is not in a vacuum. It's not like today I am Mr. So-and-so. Please change me. So divine will say you are not only Mr. So-and-so, you are also Mr. X, Mr. Y, Mr. Z. You have millions of years behind you. You are also dinosaur and the animal and the snake. You are also the Eskimo, you are also the American, you are also the Japanese, you are all these things together. Not only that, you are also a god in the making, a demon in the past, an animal, all this is there. We come and say, I am Mr. So-and-so, please take me. But when the divine takes it, he takes all of this together. Now, all that information, all that knowledge we don't even have. So it takes time. This is the process. There is no way, there is no shortcut to it. All these knots have to be unraveled. And the more number of lives we have, the more complex a personality. This again, letters of Sri Aurobindo very clearly on this. He says, it is generally seen that the more evolved a person is, the more complex his personality, and he has not one or two but several personalities. Try analyzing, see how many personalities we'll discover. And each of them, they can't be just thrown away. They have to be taken up, reconciled. Some are ready to be uplifted, some are not yet. Others are going preparation. Others are saying, no, I am fine the way I am. Sri Aurobindo writes this in one of his letters to Dilip Kumar Roy. You have several sides to yourself. How are you going to reconcile all these things? When he says, I want to take sannyas and go into moksha, he says, one part of you is to saying that. The musician part will come back after some time. The part which seeks name and fame, ambition, that will also is also there. That which is a brilliant mind, intellect. I mean, he is very good writer. He says all this will come and come in the way. Now you are saying, like Arjuna, I want to take sannyas. Like we have letter of mother, Satprem to mother. Mother, I have these at least three personalities in me. And she accepts all of them. She says, yes, yes, I know. And to each one, she helps one to go through, because it's not a shortcut path to nirvana. Nirvana is easy. I mean, not that easy, but still, nirvana is you don't care about all these complexities. You have a method. Sit and meditate this way. Other things, well, they will come by past sanskaras. Don't try to change nature. It will go away one day. It will drop because you are so much focused on your meditation or whatever method, they will eventually drop. But to assist, you have the Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Sangham Sharanam Gacchami, Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. You have a set of things which you have to do in life. Generally works which are works of piety, religious works. Rest, don't concern yourself. Stay centered in whatever, mantra is given to you or method is given to you. Other things will come, but eventually they will fall off, because we have to intensify aspiration, pierce a hole, and out we go into moksha. Here, that's not the meaning. Here, liberation means we are freed from the circle of nature and know who we are. We do not mistake nature for ourselves. We know the soul. In short, the psychic being. We know the soul. Psychic being is soul in evolution. Soul through a period of many lives becomes the psychic being. So we know that. And therefore we don't mistake nature for the psychic being. Anytime we can be free. But we also have to understand nature, and the whole working is going on there. That is the challenge of this yoga. In other yogas, freedom is good enough. Now people will say, if you are liberated from nature, discovered your soul, why do you want to get into this field? Well, that's what is called destiny. Some like to climb Mount Everest. Others are happy going to a place which is secluded, where they say we are happy because it's a nice secluded place. What you will gain by going to Mount Everest? So some want to climb the highest possibility that is accessible to man and nature. Some want to dare the impossible. That's why the mother uses the word the great adventure. Just the difficulty of the yoga before the supramental manifestation, mother had once said in the talk, all of you who are here represent an impossibility, not difficulty. Impossibility, her words. Then after supramental manifestation, when she says, you people are not even conscious, you don't know why you are doing what you are doing. You don't know, you visit the samadhi, you don't know why you are going. But then later on she says, once I had told you that each of you represents an impossibility. Now I don't want to be so harsh. I will say that all of you represent a difficulty. Unique difficulty to each one. Like a shadow, it will trace you right up to the end. It is the last stone. There is a very beautiful poem, short poem, One Day. Mother has recited it. Lovely poem. One day and all the half dead is done. One day and all the past begun. That's how it goes. And at the end he says, and lo, the last tremendous brow, the last difficulty, the stone, the rock, a step and all is sky and God. So that will chase. So this is why this yoga has to be when one is ready. A psychological preparation is necessary. Life is the field of that preparation. All events of life are a preparation for this journey. So endurance, perseverance, patience, all this humility, these are the things which prepare us, because tomorrow one will need endless endurance. Mother says, you will need endurance and faith till the last point. Landscapes will change, orientation will change. One will feel, oh, it's gone, and yet, this is a new starting point. So that's why this yoga, the 4 8s together. Now this 4 8s is generally, when one thinks about the 4 8s, one thinks about the synthesis of yoga, isn't it? You have a whole chapter on the 4 8s. But it originally comes from one of the earlier writings of Sri Aurobindo, where in one page he has summarized them. And that's what I thought we will read today. Where in one page he summarizes the whole thing. This is from the Yoga and its Objects, one of the early writings, and where Sri Aurobindo starts this way. It is said in the Sanat Sujatya. Sanat Kumar, we know the rishis who had instructed Narada into the Brahma Vidya. So they have said something that 4 things are necessary for Siddhi. Siddhi here is the perfection. Shastra, Utsaha, Guru and Kala. Same thing Sri Aurobindo brings out in the synthesis. That it is these 4 are necessary. And then he describes them. Shastra is the teaching of the path. Utsaha is zeal in following it. It's no point in reading books of, I have read so many books and comparing, contrast, and some people bring such a chaos. Literally, I have seen one place keeping Rajneesh and Sri Aurobindo together. And then they will, Sri Aurobindo has said this, Osho has said this, J. Krishnamurti has said this. This is nonsense. It is okay in an intellectual stage, it's fine, nothing wrong with it. But once we choose the path, there is a shastra for the path that we have to pick up and follow. I know this. Before turning to Sri Aurobindo, lots of books I had read. The day I turned, all of them I gifted to a school. I said, no more use for me. They said, you want to give all of them? They are precious books. I said, no more for me. It's gone. It has no meaning. Because now you know the path. Now you walk on the path. So this is where he says, you have to have that fidelity, zeal in following it. The Guru and time. Now he describes. Your path is that which I am pointing out. Very clear. You can't say I'll turn to Sri Aurobindo, but I'll do meditation according to the technique given to me by Mr. or Guruji so and so. Then there will be division. One is neither here nor there. The path is that, this is the importance of the Guru. What is the path? That which I am pointing out. The utsaha needed is this anumati and this nitya smaran. Anumati, the divine will start working. We have to learn to surrender and accept. Anumati is that. Consent, willingness. What is the opposite of it? No, I don't believe in this. I doubt it. This, that. So one is hesitating on the seashore while people have sailed far away. Anumati. What is Anumati? Divine comes and says, Chaloge, want to take a ride, joy ride. Where, Lord? I'll take you through the seas, Bhavasagar. Oh, is it? It'll be fun, no? He says, well, yeah, quite a bit of fun. With me, you can expect life to be fun. So we start. And then the first wave that comes, we say, oh my God, my shore, my shore. He'll say, look, you consented. Anumati. So what helps then? Nitya Smaran. Who is holding my hand? She is the one who is holding my hand. Nitya Smaran. So he uses 2 things. Utsaha, Anumati and Nitya Smaran. He will take us. But we have to keep remembering, mother, 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 mother. Sometime we'll ride on the waves, excellent. Sometime the wave will crash. Lord, are you sure you are taking us? Yes, I know my way. All ways are her ways. So this is how Anumati and Nitya. The Guru is God himself, and for the rest only time is needed. This is how we have to regard the Master. This is well-known ancient tradition. Who is Guru? Guru is God. He has come in this form. It doesn't mean everybody will say, my Guru is God and your Guru. No. Each one, when you have a Guru, he is God. Here we are not even bringing the avatar aspect and who is greater, lesser. It's not necessary. If you have a Guru, if you are fortunate, here of course it is the Divine Mother. This is written before the Divine Mother's coming. So we must understand. Otherwise he would have said that, who is the Guru? Mother. Mother is more than the Guru. But at least, minimum is when you have a Guru, the rare fortune of having a Guru, he is God. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma. Tasmai Sri Guru Namah. He has come to us in this form. To somebody else, he may come in another way. That God himself is the Guru, you will find when knowledge comes to you. You won't know initially, so you have to go by faith. Say, if he is God, why does he fall sick? Why? This universe is also God. Why do stars collapse? It is same. Sickness. God's outer body dies. Pralaya. So if you look at it like that, so it will come as knowledge comes. You will see how every little circumstance within you and without you has been subtly planned and brought about by infinite wisdom to carry out the natural process of the yoga. Natural process. It's through nature. And Sri Aurobindo is saying every little circumstance, inner and outer. We can't even imagine what a super, this thing is arranging everything without our, and it is done by a wisdom which far exceeds the infinite wisdom, which is arranging everything through, by taking us through the natural process, means through the nature. So there is a pressure on one part of nature, one circumstance, another part, another circumstance, and we have to navigate through that. How the internal and external movements, again, not only inner, outer movements, are arranged and brought together to work on each other so as to work out the imperfection and work in the perfection. So everything within and outside are so arranged, we can't even imagine. This is called the super divine computer, beyond our reckoning. And they are worked out to work upon the imperfection and bring in the perfection. And this is the way the divine Shakti works. What reassuring, how reassuring it is. An almighty love and wisdom are at work. Not only wisdom, love. So whatever may happen in our life, we should remember that the mother loves us. One of the letters of Sri Aurobindo, the mother loves you. Base your life on just this one thing. The mother loves us. Love and wisdom are at work and you are uplifting. If it seems, therefore, never be troubled by the time that is being taken. Those who are in hurry, impatience, they can go to McDonald's fast food yoga retreat, where you pay some 2,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees. Based on the amount of money, you will get catapulted into nirvana. It is not like that. Patience, patience. Look at mother's life and how she would say. She would everything again and again and again and again and yet again. There is a poem of Sri Aurobindo where he speaks about the iron dictators. Where he says that how many times in so many lives I have fought for thee, faced failure and defeat. If by my failure and fall, some work of thee can be done. Can we understand? The divine is accepting failure and fall because some work of the Lord. Divine means in his earlier lives as vibhutis, because some work of thee can be done. And then he says toward the end, tell me, Lord, you have given the right to these forces to attack my soul, shining, to come, obstruct the shining passage of my soul. Is it not yet thy hour of victory? O ancient of the days, thou knowest, thou knowest. Is it not yet? You have given them the right to oppose the shining passage of my soul. So that's how this yoga is. So there has to be a strong Kshatriya element to do this yoga. It's all intellectual. People who are afraid, mother would say, don't take up this yoga if you are so full of fear. Kshatriya element, which faces life as a challenge, takes the challenge. That's why youthfulness, urge for progress. Even if death stands in front, oh, why this happened? Somebody asked, somebody had turned to mother or was living in ashram, not even turned to mother. Somebody was living in ashram, Dada, how he has died of corona, please explain to us. So, what is there? First time death is taking place, corona or no corona, death is taking place. No, how does it make special if somebody dies of corona? But when we look at the lives of the great ones who have gone the path, Guru Gobind Singh, his father, Tegh Bahadur, did he cry? Why you are doing like this? My children are on hot plate, they are being burnt, buried. What kind of God are you? No. Till the last minute. He is beheaded. But his trust, faith remains intact. He knows it is a sacrifice because of which the entire Mughal empire will come crashing down. Can we imagine what these people have been? Look at Sri Aurobindo. What kind of difficulty? Doesn't know what is going to happen in the evening. Food will be there or not there. Mother is keeping us so nicely and comfortably. Look at what they have undergone. What tortures mother has undergone. She passingly mentions it. And then she says, I don't want to speak about that. Don't even take that person's name because it will bring all the adverse forces in the environment. All this they have gone through. Sri Aurobindo in the previous life as Danton, at 32 being guillotined, pushed at the doge into the canal. All this they go through. This is the metal which is needed for yoga. Yoga is not for the weak, as the Upanishad says. Na yamatma balhine na medha na bahuna shuten. It is not for the weak. So a long time in life one has to become strong. Strong nerves, strong in every aspect. Strength, Swami Vivekananda would say, strength is needed for the yoga. Therefore, never be troubled by the time that is being taken, even if it seems very long. But when imperfections and obstructions arise, they will arise because of the pressure of yoga. Be apramatta, dhira, having the utsa, have the utsa, and leave God to do the rest. Don't get, oh my God, obstacles. No. Keep turning to her, keep orienting to her. Apramat. He doesn't allow himself to forget the divine. And dhira, Upanishad speaks of this one word, patience, perseverance, everything it means. Who sees the self? Tamatmastham yenu pashyanti dhira. Steadfast. Turn everything to her. And you see that obstacle, how it will dissolve. Not only dissolve, it will become a means to carry us further. What does, you see, this is very well demonstrated in Ramayana. In Ramayana, when Hanuman is going across, so Sursa, she is a goddess. He says, is he trying to do this impossible work? Is he really, can he do this? So she takes the form of Sursa. And she comes. And Hanuman, as usual, promises her. He says, I won't let you go. He says, तो फिर तो मुझे खाना ले, okay, come, you eat me up. But he says, खाना ले. You will not eat me up. You will eat me but not eat me up. So it's so beautiful. It is, जो जो सुरसा बदन बढ़ावा, तास दोन कपि रूप दिखावा. Sursa would expand her mouth and Hanuman will expand himself. He is not, he says, if there is an obstacle, I will increase my faith. Tasudun kapi roop dikhawa. Then she expands, the difficulty becomes impossible. And then what Hanuman does, with utter humility enters her mouth, becomes a small little chinna. Hanuman goes and comes out before she can close the mouth. She says, look, I have kept my promise. So you move out. Then she says, ki you have not only bal but also buddhi, rightly centered. And then she is the one who gives him the direction, leads him towards that place. The difficulty becomes the possibility. So this is how the one has to understand. Leave God to do the rest. Time is necessary. Why? It is a tremendous work that is being done in you. We should not think it is fixing a fuse or rectifying a car, denting, painting. There is no denting, painting. This is a whole engine has to change. When everything changes, you won't recognize this is the same fellow. So this is not denting, painting work. It's not like outwardly we look very nice and when somebody comes, Sadhu Baba, Namaste, and Bhagwan ka wo. It's not that. It's a real change. When you say Namaste, there should be something from within leaping out. When you smile, it's not like wearing nice dresses and saying Dhuni Ramake. No, it's an inner change. Tremendous work. It's not denting, painting work. It's not wearing a nice, decent dress but holding the same, Red Riding Hood story. The wolf inside. So he says, it is a tremendous work that is being done in you. The alteration of your whole human nature into a divine nature, not bits and parts. The crowding of centuries of evolution into a few years. All our past lives inside us. You ought not to grudge the time. And if we grudge the time, then he tells us an option. There are other paths that offer more immediate results, or any rate, by offering you some definite kriya, you can work at yourself, give you ahankar, the satisfaction of feeling that you are doing something. Today I have done 10,000 japas. You know how many pranayams I do? 2 hours. No, I don't do, please. Huh? But ahankar of doing kriya. I have never gone out of ashram. 50 years. Ahankar. I have always worn only white. Ahankar. This is not what is required. Plasticity. Look at what Sri Aurobindo says. Ahankar. Ahankar of doing sadhana. We are sadhaks. We are doing sadhana. First step is wrong. Only Mother and Sri Aurobindo are doing sadhana. We are receiving the prasad. So many more pranayams today. So much longer a time for the asana. So many more repetitions of the japa. So much done. So much definite progress marked. So this is what the ahankar does. But once you have chosen this path, you must cleave to it. They are simple paths. If you want this McDonald's yoga, then that is another route. Gives you a definite kriya, you do it, you are satisfied. I have done, pranayam, asanas and some meditation, half an hour. Now I can extend to 45 minutes. That's it. Japa I am doing so many times, counting the mala. Those are human methods, not the way that the infinite Shakti works, which moves silently, sometimes imperceptibly to its goal, advances here, seems to pause there, then mightily and triumphantly reveals the grandiose thing that it has done. Won't even know what happened, how she is silently, imperceptibly. Suddenly she'll come and change us like that. This is the mighty work. Artificial paths are like canals hewn by the intelligence of man. You travel easily, safely, surely, but from one given place to another. Canals. So artificial paths are like swimming pool. I learned the classical way of swimming. In sea, what classical way? What will at the end matter is endurance and faith. Trust me. Beyond a point, one will get tired. One will want to come back to the shore. Because in sea, you can't cross the ocean like that. So you have to wait for the ship. No human effort. Artificial paths are like canals. From here, you have to go where? That 15 feet. This much depth here, that much depth here. Here, the depth, abyss, heights beyond the skies. If we ask. Landscape, the whole ocean. This path is the broad and trackless ocean by which you can travel widely to all parts of the world and are admitted to the freedom of the infinite. The infinite is not bound to anything, yet it plays with everything. Freedom of the infinite. Vasudevam sarvamiti yatkincha jagatyam jagat. Every energy is his energy. And he plays with everything and yet is inwardly free. So freedom of the infinite. All that you need. So what do we do then, sir? Trackless ocean. Kahan le ja rahe ho? All that you need is the ship, the steering wheel, the compass, the motive power, and a skillful captain. Very simple. So what is the ship? Your ship is the Brahma Vidya. Now here is not defined, but even Shastra is not Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya is something inwardly. Vidya abides, nature is oneness. That which will lead us towards the knowledge of the divine in all his fullness, the oneness, that is Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya is not this or that outer something. Anything in knowledge which will lead us towards oneness and towards union with the divine, or rather, the oneness that comes by union with the divine is Brahma Vidya. So, this is the ship. Faith is your steering wheel. You don't know. Ship means which way? Okay, Ma, faith. She will carry me through whatever way. Steering wheel, faith. Never to lose faith. Self-surrender your compass. So look at it. You don't know. Honestly, on a sea, uncharted sea. So what you do is faith and surrender. Steering wheel and the compass. So people often ask, divine will. Divine will, if you know, excellent. But till then, act in your highest and surrender it to Mother. Remember and offer. So many times in Mahabharata, Arjuna said or did something which were not the right thing or best thing. But then he gave it to Krishna. He didn't even give, but Shri Krishna knew it. He said, okay, now I have to sort out. Because he had done the first grand act. Shishyasteham sadhimam. If we do that, then she will carry us. So, surrender is the compass. There is no other. Look at the wideness of the yoga. The motive power is she who makes, directs and destroys the worlds at God's command. And God Himself is the captain. So who is the motive power? Shakti. She will drive us through unknown tracks. So always to remember, am I being driven by the ego? Am I being driven by the desired self? Or am I being open myself to the divine Shakti to lead me? This is the important element. Through surrender, through opening to the Mother, to keep on reorienting. Anything for the ego, remove. Anything for personal pleasure, take away and let her carry us. So, and who is the captain? God. There is a very nice poem of Sri Aurobindo to R on her birthday poem. And he writes very beautifully. In that he says, fear not for the waves that swell, winds that sweep, storms that cloud. Fear not. Always our captain holds the rudder well. He does not sleep. You don't fear. Captain will see to it. Sometimes it look like, this ship, but he will not let your journey end up with the Titanic. It is the promised land, not the Titanic ending. Always our captain. Rejoice and fear not for the winds that sweep, the waves that swell. Always the captain holds the rudder well. He does not sleep. So this should be our approach. And then he says something still further. Even they who sink in the victorious flood. Sometimes it may happen that life is like that. Even they who sink in the victorious flood, where do they sink? He who to some gives victory, joy and good, to some gives rest. Okay, my child, I know you are a warrior soul, you have fought the war and then at some point, doesn't matter, come to me. The divine does not judge or condemn. Come again with a new form. Continue the journey further. So this is the great assurance that he is giving all the time to us. But he has his own way of working and his own time for everything. Last time when Arjuna said, I want you, he said, okay, come for Mahabharata. His own way. Because there are so many reasons he'll reveal to us. He has his own way and his own method of working. We can't command. No, please make my life very smooth, easy. Please see to it that I have this, that, everything. Then divine will say, okay, you keep everything, I'll come later. Because then he'll come again, knock, knock. Who? Played that game? Knock, knock. Who? Divine. Coming along. What do you want? Me or the world? It's a different thing. When you choose him, the world also comes to you. But that you can't make a choice with this calculation. I want you. Then he says, come along. And then the whole Mahabharata starts. Watch his ways and wait for his time. I want experience, I want this, I want quickly. No. Then he'll say, okay, wait. I think you stay more. Watch his way and wait for his time. Understand also the importance of accepting the Shastra and submitting to the Guru. And do not do like the Europeans who insist on the freedom of the individual intellect to follow its own fancies and preferences, which it calls reasonings. The mind gives a convenient reason for everything. Follow the way of the Guru, the Master's leading. even before it is trained to discern or fit to reason. There is a time when we begin to discern, wisdom begins to dawn. But before that, if we try, no, I'll follow my own way. All that Sri Aurobindo is written, all this surrender, mother, all this is not needed. Supreme is inside me, straight away I'll launch into Supreme. So, he says that there is a way. What is the way? Aspiration, rejection, surrender, all that we have been speaking of. Sri Aurobindo has revealed to us. It is much the fashion nowadays to indulge in metaphysical discussions and philosophical subtleties about Maya and Advaita and put them in the forefront, making them take the place of spiritual experience. Do not follow that fashion or confuse yourself and waste time on the way by questionings which will be amply and luminously answered when the divine knowledge of the Vijnana awakens in you. So every kind of little this thing, people have a tendency, this analytical mind, restless mind, to know everything. What we should know is about the Shastra, the broad outline, the goal, what is required to. That's all that is necessary. Rest we will know. How does it matter whether we know what happens after death or not? That's somebody else's problem. It's not going to help me when I die. I need to know what should be my state when I leave my body. That's knowledge which is needed for me. I should know how to arrive at that state. So Shri Krishna will tell us, remember and offer all through your life, then you are ready to die. What happens after my death? Who does the Shraddha? Who takes away the will, distorts it, takes away the money? This is not the knowledge which I need to have. It is meaningless. A life well lived is what I need to know. How to depart gracefully and beautifully with state of smaran of the divine, I need to know. Rest is unimportant. But there are all kinds of metaphysical knowledge. But Shankara said so, Vivekananda said something else. But Raman Maharishi said this. And people debate and discuss. Any of them will tell us, okay, this, that, everybody has said, what have you experienced? Minimum, psychic being. Sir, what is that? So there will be a discussion on psychic being. What is psychic being? Vis-a-vis. This Purusha, that Purusha. Is psychic being mentioned in some other literature? How does it matter? If nobody has mentioned it, is it not enough that Mother and Sri Aurobindo has spoken about it? If we are treading this path, how does it matter whether any Upanishad, the Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata, anybody has mentioned or not mentioned? Does that validate? No. What if Sri Aurobindo and the mother had unique experience which nobody had? So we have to understand that this is a waste of time in comparing and contrasting the Shastras. So here he is cautioning us that don't follow that way of the European mind. Do not follow that fashion and confuse yourself. Metaphysical knowledge has its place, but as a handmaid to spiritual experience. If you have spiritual experience and you know how to give it a form of words, yes, by all means. But it will not give you the experience. If you think it will give us the experience, no. Sometimes a life is wasted in metaphysical reasoning. It has its place, little place. Generally, you know the map, landscape. But this reminds me of a small little story. A little boatman is carrying 3 religious people in the boat. And suddenly, one of them asks, by the way, have you read the Bible? So the boatman says, no sir, I don't know English. So the second person says, okay, you must have read the Quran. He said, sir, that though is alien. I am an Indian. How will I know about Quran? Born, developed in Arabia. I don't even know the Indian stuff. There are so much Indian literature only. So then the third says, Pandit, by the way, then you must have read the Gita. No, sir, Sanskrit also is difficult for me. I know only my local dialect. So all of them say your life is wasted. Okay, wasted, what to do? Then after some time, there is a leak in the boat and they are all about to drown. So this man asks only one question, sir. Excuse me, sir. All of you are great Pandits. You know Gita, Bible, Quran and God knows what all. By the way, do you know swimming? No. Sir, sorry. Thank you so much. Now you have no other choice but to drown. I will jump and escape. That's what is important, to get the experience. Not for the sake of getting the experience, but to practice, to put it into practice. So Sri Aurobindo speaks of it very beautifully. Metaphysical knowledge is a handmaid to spiritual experience, showing it the way sometimes, but much more dependent on it and living upon its bounty. By itself, it is mere panditya, a dry and barren thing, and more often a stumbling block than a help. Having accepted this path, follow its Shastra without unnecessary doubt and questioning, keeping the mind plastic to the light of the higher knowledge. Higher knowledge doesn't work as a rule book. Somebody asked Sri Aurobindo, "Sir, is there a rule book which tells us about good and bad, right and wrong?" He laughed. He said, "Oh, a rule book for life?" Really? It doesn't work like that. Life is not a rule book, black and white. He laughed. Oh, a rule book for life? that. So you have to wait, be plastic to the higher knowledge. Gripping firmly what is experienced. Waiting for light where things are dark to you. Taking without pride what help you can from the living guides who have already trod the path. Always patient, never hastening to narrow conclusions, but waiting for a more complete experience and a fuller light, relying on the Jagat Guru who helps you from within. So it's an ever expanding horizon through which we move, in which these are the four main aids. Once again, the Shastra, outside Shastra to awaken the inner Shastra. At one place he says, Shabda Brahmati Vartate. The Gita also says. He says, we are not followers of a book or many books. We are followers of the infinite. So Shastra is helpful. It may determine our journey to a large extent or small extent, one book or few books. But there comes a time when we have to go beyond, because no book can capture everything. It's a living experience. And the second is Guru, outside, and we have to discover him inside. Otherwise we'll say now, Guru is no more. Guru is never no more. If somebody is no more, one is not a Guru. So this is the catch. And here we have the Divine Mother. Then third is Utsaha, where he says Anumati, very important. And Nitya Smaran, two things he reminds us for the disciple. And for the rest, time. So wait, learn to wait with faith, endurance, surrender, constantly orienting ourselves. Faith and surrender, he speaks of the steering wheel and the compass. Till finally all is transformed, which is going to be a long process. So perseverance and patience. Dhira, apramat, not confused and bewildered. Apramat is somebody who is not bewildered. Hurry, I turned to mother, why this happened in my life? Who knows? Precisely because you turned to the divine Shakti. Now you are in evolution, fast forward. 10 lives in 1 life. Go through it. So this state of constant surrender, faith, trust, endurance. And once we have that, then of course, and the wide landscape of the yoga through which this journey moves, many lives have to be summarized, compressed, many parts, aspects, personalities which have to be taken up, reckoned, changed for the final product, which is the divine humanity upon earth. Thank you.